There was a point during the Casino Battle Royale on the June 8th, 2022 edition of Dynamite where I just marveled at the amount of high-level talent in the ring. Now, keep in mind, at this point, AEW has significant injuries to Kenny Omega and CM Punk, and there was also no MJF on this show. Never mind that the Battle Royal itself was missing the likes of Hangman Page, Bryan Danielson, Miro, Wardlow, and Chris Jericho. And yet, it still felt like a star-studded affair. Just look down the list. Ricky Starks, Powerhouse Hobbs, Swerve Strickland, Keith Lee, Darby Allin, Andrade, Rey Fenix, Dante Martin, Eddie Kingston, and now, after that main event performance against Jon Moxley at the end of the night, I'm ready to add Kyle O'Reilly to this depth chart too. This really is a historic roster, and nights like this night are reminders of why the AEW roster is as loaded with talent as it is. I'm Riven Blade, and today I'm going to talk to you about the roster depth of AEW. Now, I totally get feeling like the roster is too big because we have seen people cycled in and out, or appearing one week and disappearing the next, or worst of all, only giving a world champion a couple of minutes to make an impression in the middle of a stacked episode of Dynamite or Rampage. But I'm at the point where I've mostly accepted that this is what it is, while still thinking that of course there are ways to improve the system. But when I compare it to what's happening in WWE, for instance, who are going to be without Cody for probably 6 to 9 months, who aren't going to be featuring their unified champion that much this summer, and who have been forced to push the John Cena emergency button in 2022, I'd say AEW is in a pretty good spot by comparison. When you really think about it, they do a good job of keeping the vast majority of their talent over, and they've built up a number of credible top-of-the-card competitors, so even if they're without their world champion and arguably their best in-ring performer for an extended period of time, they can just plug in a Jon Moxley or a Danielson or an Eddie Kingston to fill that void. Speaking of getting talent over, how good have the Acclaimed gotten? And why do I suddenly find myself looking forward to seeing the Gun Club? How amazing is Dante Martin? It's all pretty fun to watch. Another positive of this method is that if you are in a situation where people have grown tired of an act, such as many have in regard to Sammy Guevara, for instance, you can pull them off TV for a little while and still have Andrade, Miro, Swerve, and Ricky standing right there to fill in the gap, which is a pretty convenient luxury. Now, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. The bigger a roster is, the more egos there are to massage and manage, and the more delicate booking becomes. How do you decide whether to give Scorpio Sky mic time or Adam Cole a match? There will always be someone who is simply cut from the card. The unfortunate story up until now is that the majority of the time this has been someone, or many someones, from the women's division. And given how rife with raw talent that side of the roster now is, this is a reality that's going to become more and more contentious and maybe even unacceptable. Or maybe already is unacceptable in the eyes of many, and probably is. Now, I'm not here to offer any solutions, but just to say that despite its obvious flaws given the limits of TV time, having a deep roster also has its perks, and we saw those on full display on this particular episode of Dynamite. Could Tony Khan do a better job of managing the roster and TV time? Probably. But when we're getting treated to matches like Pac versus Buddy Matthews and Jon Moxley versus Kyle O'Reilly, and angles like the JAS and BCC on a weekly basis, it makes the problems easier to ignore, even though we still shouldn't be ignoring them. But what do you think? Is AEW's roster too big? Do the benefits outweigh the costs, or are the costs not worth it? Because we've seen what happens when you just let people sit around in catering. Whatever your thoughts are, please share them in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, share it with your wrestling-loving friends, and subscribe to my channel. Until next time, thank you all so much for watching. I appreciate it.